Welcome to Buckets, brought to you by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. My name's Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network. I'm joined by the future Jays, Joe Delara. You can find him on Twitter in the Action Network app at Joe Delara, and Jim Turvey. You can find him at TurveyBets, because Jim actually has like a slightly interesting name as opposed to Joe, who's just like, my name. What's your like online identity? My name. That's Joe Delara. But the picks are hot and spicy. We are doing in-season tournament today. MVP discussion on the Friday show with Sean Little. Make sure to check that out. We'll do awards next week on this show on the Future Jays episode next Sunday. We will hit pretty much all of the non-MVP awards. We will just hit them all. And we're going to check in on all those awards next week. But this is in-season tournament week. The tournament schedule is as follows. On Monday and Tuesday, the quarterfinals are played. They have Wednesday off. On Thursday, they play in Vegas in the semifinals. Friday is off. Saturday is the finals of the in-season tournament. Sunday, there are no games in the NBA. There's a bunch of games on Wednesday of everybody else. There you go. That's how that works out. We're going to hit on best bets. We're going to hit on in-season tournament. We're going to try and talk about like the entire flow. We already have a lot of bets on this, but now that we're here and we have it, I want to get Joe and Jim on and actually like talk about like, okay, if then, especially now that we'll have best bets on these games and we'll see like what the value is, etc. If then, we'll talk about what the outcomes for the tournament are. Want to let you know, everything we talk about can be found in the award-winning Action Network app. You get all sorts of cool stuff. You get the pro feature is really awesome. And so one of the cool things is you can go to the pro feature on any game day and you'll just scroll down, and you'll see, oh, the money is coming in on this team, but there's been sharp moves the other direction on side total money line. Oh, we've got system plays in here that you can sync up using Bet Labs. Oh, there's this, like, you can track all that. You can also track the line movement. There is a lot of stuff that you will find messing around with the app that will help you be a better. Download it right now. Also, check out youtube.com/The Action Network. You can check out live versions of all our shows. Make sure to check that out. Hopefully we'll have some video content since Sean Little and I will both be in Las Vegas for the in-season tournament this week. Very excited to be out there and see this thing for the first time. I'm very curious to see what the mood and the vibe is, especially because if you have a job or you have flexibility and you want to go to Vegas and like you wanted to go to this thing, you could probably find affordable tickets if you're catching my drift. This will not be an impossible ticket to find. That will go quickly if the Los Angeles Lakers win on Tuesday night versus the Phoenix Suns. That will change things. We'll talk about that on tomorrow's show. All right, guys, let's go around the table. We'll get best bets, and then we'll go back and we'll do the cap. Joe, let's start with you this week. What's your best bets for the Monday slate?
I'm on the Boston Celtics -4.5. Drew Holiday over 6.5 rebounds, and Jonas Valanciunas double-double.
Okay, it's Jonas Valanciunas. Thank you. His name is Jonas.
Jonas
He's
Valanciunas.
He's carrying the will. Jim Turvey, what is your best bet for Tuesday?
Yeah, I'm going to be on the Pelicans +4.5, and then two kind of semi-related ones. The full game total under 241 in Indiana and Boston, and specifically the Indiana team total under 118.5.
Okay. I am on Pels +4 with Jim, and I am on Pels money line for like a quarter of a unit as well. Can't increase my exposure. So might as well, or can't lessen my exposure. So might as well increase my exposure on the Pelicans. Let's start, Jim. I want to knock out, Joe. I want to knock out your props real quick. So let's start on the Drew over rebounds cap for Celtics versus Pacers.
So what I like about the Drew Holiday pick here is Indiana's got one of the worst rebounding percentage rates in the NBA. Additionally, I think this is going to be a high-paced game with obviously Indiana playing at just a lightning pace. And I think that Indiana's formula to win this game is going to be to try to run Boston off the court, and just try to up that variance in terms of the three-point shooting, get into their offense as much as they can, and just try to run. Additionally, I think it's something we'll talk about, but I think that these games, I expect the starters to play a little bit more. And like, it's tough to compare it to anything. Like, we don't really have a comparison point. Like, we've never had an in-season tournament before. Maybe the closest thing is kind of like the play-in tournament, but I think that even that has a bit higher stakes than this, right? So I do think that we'll see the starters play more minutes. Kristaps Porzingis looks like he's not going to play, so I think that should only help Drew Holiday secure a couple extra boards. He's averaging 7.2 on the season, and he's been pretty solid on this number against the Indiana Pacers overall. So I like Drew Holiday to go over the 6.5 rebounds in this spot, where I think Boston should kind of cruise to a win here.
I'm curious on the minutes thing, because I'm not sure that I buy it. I'm not sure that I buy that they're going to play more minutes in this one, because they have to go. They play again on Thursday, so you get 2 days off, which is good, but it's not like meaningfully much. I will tell you this: there is definitely going to be a thing here with the contender teams, with the Bucks and the Celtics and the Lakers and the Suns, of like, we want to win, but we don't want to look like we're trying too hard. Like, there's going to be a whole lot of the kids that are too cool, can't look like you're actually caring about these things. There's going to be some of that, so I don't know about that. But just based off of, look, you are kind of in a limit here where, look, if Jim's right and he hits the team total under, guess what? The Pacers miss some shots, and if there's more shots missed, then Drew grabs more. And I don't have a play on it, but I am in line with that. Tell me about Jonas Valanciunas on the double-double.
So his history against Sabonis has been just dynamite, right? And I think that you need Valanciunas on the floor to deal with Sabonis. You don't want to have Zion trying to defend Sabonis, getting in a ton of foul trouble. Like, that's just not what New Orleans wants to do. Over the last couple of seasons, even this season alone, right? Valanciunas has 2 double-doubles against Sabonis. Dating back over his last 9 games, he has double-doubles in 8 of the last 9 against Sabonis in a head-to-head. The one miss, he had 13 points and 8 rebounds. So this is definitely a spot where I think that Valanciunas is going to line up and kind of match minutes, or try to mirror as many minutes with Sabonis as possible. And even when he doesn't play a ton of minutes, this is a line that he has been able to hit historically against Sabonis. So even though there's some fluctuations, just his rebounding rate and his ability to score has been pretty strong against Sabonis. So I like this head-to-head type of matchup where I try to target some of the centers. And additionally, like I said, he's gone over this in 3 of his last 4 against Sabonis over the last 2 years with him on the Kings. So I really like the spot. He was averaging 11 in those head-to-head matchups over the past 2 seasons. So I like Valanciunas to get that double-double.
Jim, I appreciate that you decided to have a backbone and not play props here. Like, I just want to applaud you for not being like, oh yeah, no, we're gonna here's Malik Monk over 3. Like, I appreciate you manning up and playing. Bowing up and playing actual picks here. I am curious why you didn't actually play any props for us on Best Bet. Is it just that you didn't find anything that was worth looking at?
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of both. Because I love to dabble with Joe in the land of props, and the couple that I looked at that kind of was eyeing a potential spot. They sniffed out a few, and then a few I wasn't fully comfortable with. I can kind of talk through one of the ones maybe that I've been eyeing in this Pelicans game in a minute, but I really like both of Joe's, actually, to be honest. That Valanciunas one, one thing that caught my eye, I'm going to talk through this in a minute, but Trey Murphy coming back, he didn't eat into Valanciunas' minutes. I kind of thought maybe that would be the case. They'd look to go small a little bit more, but he really didn't. Valanciunas pretty much got full minutes load. Interestingly enough, Zion was the one who ate into his minutes load a little bit. I don't know if that would be every game. I'd assume not. But I actually, speaking of props, one of the ones I was looking at was maybe going under on Zion's rebounds in terms of them having more players back. Valanciunas really eating against the Kings. But they kind of sniffed that out. They said it about 5.5. And I was like, nah, I don't really want to go under that one. So it mostly, I would say, for tonight's slate was just nothing really caught my eye. And I had a couple sides and totals I did like.
Yeah. See, this is my new strategy though, because I'm so bad at props betting. I'm just going to diminish it and demean it while you guys continue to rack up wins betting on props. All right, let's get into the sides and total stuff here. Let's start with Celtics and the Pacers. Currently in the market, this is ticked up to Celtics -5. The total is ticked up to 240.5. No surprise there. This is now stretched to 240, given that the Pacers over has been just extremely good to play. Like the Heat won the other night is like the pinnacle of it. No Tyrese Haliburton, and they still like somehow put up a monster number on Miami. I know Bam was out, but like, holy God, if they're gonna put up that kind of number, that's crazy. And typically, like, I love like the easy play. I've bet ridiculous numbers on overs with the Pacers, but I do surprisingly do have this projected under. And as this continues to kind of get up there, I'm getting closer to wanting to bet an under along with Jim on this one. Jim, go ahead and give me the cap for why you like the under. Let's start there in Pacers versus Celtics.
Yeah, so I'm definitely wary. You know, there is a little bit of fear going on and under again, like in any game with this Pacers team right now, because as we've talked about, the offense is historically great and the defense is historically bad. And part of that is if we're looking at raw like points allowed, that's going to be from pace, but it's also just a pretty bad defense. They're much more focused on getting the ball out of the hoop and running you out the gym with an offense that's really going to be the focal point. But the reason I'm looking under on this, and hopefully you can wait on this. I keep an eye on it. Like you said, it has steamed up actually quite a bit. There's always a little bit of fear when you're going against that, but I think this is a spot where actually the Celtics offense has kind of cooled off a bit in the last couple of weeks quietly. They're down to, if we use cleaning the glass, which cuts out those garbage time minutes, they're the 22nd ranked offense in the last 2 weeks, just way down from 9th overall on the season. So, you know, if we look at it from the Celtics side of it, that's one factor. They did really run the Pacers out of the gym the last time they played, put up 150.
Yeah. Well, hey, hang on. Let's put some context. They scored 155 points. Like, we need to like make sure that we're not like, oh yeah, like they beat the Pacers badly. Like, they scored 150 on them.
It's insane.
Yeah,
insane.
It was arguably the most. Was it the biggest blowout of the season? It must be, right? I don't think we have any other 50-point losses.
The Pistons might, but like
Pistons have 2 or 3 of them. But my favorite part of this is the Pacers part of it, which goes into why I also have the Pacers team total under targeted as well on that 118.5. So part of this is that Haliburton is questionable. We talked through a couple weeks back when I made my slanderous comparison to Chris Paul for Haliburton, just how amazing he has been in terms of impact on the Pacers the last couple seasons. So I'll just run through these really quick. But again, points per 100 with him on, it's 121, with him off 113. 3-point percentage drops 4 points. True shooting percentage drops 6 points. The turnovers go up by 2 per 100. They get their free throw rate plummets. So really, he is essential to driving this offense. Now, as you pointed out, the last game against Miami, they got over the line even without Haliburton. And in this game, honestly, I think even if Haliburton plays, I am going to be comfortable. It will be much less of a hammer and more of a lean. But I think that Boston really has the defensive personnel that can kind of give Haliburton some trouble. Us three right here are probably about as high on Haliburton as you're going to find out there. However, I think, at least for me personally, a good chunk of that is I think he is like one of the 3 or 4 smartest players in the league right now. And it isn't, I mean, don't get me wrong, he is incredible. He's an incredible athlete. He has incredible vision. But I think a lot of what he is so good at is picking a weakness and really, just shredding it over and over again. And this Celtics defense, eventually their backcourt, especially their backcourt, is really, really strong. Probably about the best in league. I think the biggest argument for another incredible defensive backcourt is the Magic. And look at what he did against Magic. It was his worst game of the year. He had 12 points. He really struggled. I don't think we're going to see that bad of a game from him. I think that was, a little bit of a one-off. But I do think this is a defensive backcourt that if anyone can give Haliburton a little bit of trouble, and if anyone can slow this Pacers offense down, it's a defense like the Celtics that has, Drew, Derek White in the backcourt. Really, really strong. So that Pacers under is my favorite part of it, but the game as a whole, because of the way the Celtics offense has been the last couple of weeks, hasn't been quite up to their standards. I like the over if it doesn't start to trend back down towards where it originally opened.
Okay, counter. They're playing the Pacers, who are currently 30th in schedule adjusted defense.
Yeah, that is fair.
And it's what's funny is I looked at how I have this projected. I can't play an under because I have this literally at I have it at 238 and a half, and it's just like there's not enough clearance on that for me to bet it unless it's got up to like 244. What's interesting though is I have it projected Celtics slightly over and Pacers slightly under. And so like I have a little bit of an edge on playing both sides of that, which honestly it's why I think your Pacers under the best here, where Boston might go either way. Like that to me might be the tension point here is like Boston against this defense, like Boston's offense may underperform, and so they don't go under, but like the Pacers defense is still so bad. Like that's a question mark here versus what do we know? Like
what do we target? Yeah.
Like what we know is the Pacers offense is really good, but the Celtics defense is number 1 in the league, and they've held down the Pacers before. I would love the Pacers to win this game. Like I hate that this is who they got. I would much rather have it be like how good would Knicks Pacers at the Fieldhouse be with all like the Ewing Miller stuff?
Yeah.
How good would honestly Pacers Bucks be given that the Pacers have like already pushed them this season? That would be really good. Like I hate that this is the matchup because like the Pacers are one of the most fun stories. And Joe, you've got them -4.5. The Celtics -5. I think you're probably fine with too. Yeah. It just this is such a bad matchup for Indiana, and even without Kristaps Porzingis, who's going to miss this game, even if Tyrese plays, Tyrese has a respiratory infection, by the way. That either way, I just can't. I've tried and tried, and I can't get to a spot of the Pacers are going to win this game. If they do, it's going to be amazing. But I can't find a way that they're going to win this game. Yeah,
I mean, I think the only way that Indiana wins this game is like they variance them. Like it's a one game situation, and the shots fall. Like if they can shoot 50% from 3, which against Boston, very tall task. Like the circumstances are just not there. Like the margin's not there. If this game was in Boston, like, and maybe we saw like Boston -9 and like a +310 money line, I probably would be betting Indiana just based on like where the value is. Like I just think that the home court here is like making the line somewhere that I think is valuable. Like I don't know like how much this home court really means to a young Indiana team who's never really had to play in any type of circumstance that's like, or any game that's like this important right now. Like whereas Boston, this is like, we kind of talked about this off air a bit, but it's like, how much like is Boston going to really even be that concerned about this? Is this just like a regular game to them? And I think like maybe being able to go into the game like kind of loose and like playing the way that they play, like they don't have to do anything different. Boston doesn't have to scheme differently to defend the Indiana Pacers. Like they can just go out there, do what they do. And I think that that's super valuable in this spot. So at 4.5, 5.5, I'm pretty comfortable laying that margin. I think that you're going to see a lot of free throws maybe at the end of the game, especially like if it's close, which I think could help us get out of that threshold too. Like if it is a little bit closer, I think that, like if it's at a 5-point game or a 6-point game, like you're not going to see them just say like, all right, we're just going to give it to you. Like I think we might see a couple fouls there towards the end where you wouldn't, but I'm not even really that concerned with that circumstance. I think that Boston is the better team just overall. And I think that what you mentioned about the backcourt is damaging enough for Haliburton. And the fact that, if he is dealing with a respiratory illness, which like obviously is, but like, I don't know how bad that's going to be, come Monday night, that could impact the way that he plays or the minutes that he plays. Maybe he can't play 45 minutes in a spot where Indiana, who, is a younger team, probably wants this moment for these players, for this organization, that like they might really care about this in-season tournament, maybe a little bit more because they don't necessarily have those title aspirations, but like this is their thing. Maybe they can't run him as many minutes as they would normally want to. So I'm very comfortable laying the 4.5 and the 5. And like you guys mentioned, like I'm super high on Haliburton. This game, I just think this is just the worst matchup they could have possibly had. And Boston, is for all intents and purposes the best team in the league right now. And even without Kristaps Porzingis, you still have Al Horford. You have a very strong starting 5 here. I think that they kind of take care of business here and move on.
So with normalized home court advantage, I have this actually Celtics -8.
Okay.
With adjusting for in season, how the Pacers have been at home, I have it 2.4. Right, so that gives me like 2 points of value, and those have been a little bit actually been that has overperformed the normalized over the last 3 weeks as we start to see standardized numbers. That helps a lot for my projections. So like I should have a little bit of value on Indiana here, but you're right that it's a weird environment. It's a different environment. Like, do the Celtics come into this and are like, no, we're winning the 500,000. Let's treat this like a little bit higher.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, what does that look like for Indiana? What does the variance look like? Like, KP's been out. I think it's a big part of the offense struggling lately. Like, that is a significant loss for them. But it's not like the Pacers as much as I like the Pacers bigs. I like the Pacers bigs as in like oh, they just like help, not as in like oh that like Miles Turner's going to go off for 25 and 10.
Yeah.
Like that's not going to happen. So I'm kind of with you. The 4.5 though is why I don't think I'll play it. Is we're in that range of I'm very cautious about numbers between 4 and 6.5. It's not like the NFL where there are key numbers, but if the Pacers are down 4 with 7 seconds left, maybe they foul, maybe they don't foul, right? And that's maybe they just run it out. And whenever you're in that spot where they can run it out, I get real nervous about how to lay numbers if I don't have a significant edge in the spot or in the projection. I think it's a really interesting matchup. It should be like better than it was that last time.
Yeah, it has to be.
The Pacers have kind of shown they can bounce back. What, Joe?
Haliburton didn't play in that other one.
Yeah.
So
and who knows what he's gonna look like with a respiratory infection.
Hey Matt, real quick, do you think if Haliburton is ruled either officially out or officially in, this, like how much is Haliburton baked into this line? I see kind of 75% playing based on this line, I think.
Yeah, this suggests that he's gonna play.
Yeah.
And usually when guys have like respiratory infections, they can get them healthy because they have guys giving them. I actually heard a player talking about this, about what they did, which is like they were sick. And so they were like, yeah, okay, you come in, you take your IV, you go immediately to the sauna and you sweat it out. And then you go back and you get your IV and you go in the sauna and you sweat it out. And I'm like, I want this when I'm sick. This sounds amazing. And they're like, okay, go and take a 2-hour nap and then we're going to do it again. And I'm like, this is amazing. Like what? Like why can't I be treated like a $15 million a year NBA player? I do think that if he plays, I don't think this moves if he plays. I think that
I agree.
I think it moves
especially because we're seeing movement on Boston, so it's like they don't need to move it back.
Yeah,
like they don't need to. If they move it back, they're just gonna take more Boston money.
Yeah,
but if he doesn't play, it's gonna
skyrocket. It's got to skyrocket. Like it has to.
Yeah. So like, let's see what I've got him at. Yeah, I've got him at. I have him high, is what I'll say as far as like what he's worth to the spread.
Like you're replacing him with TJ McConnell, and I love a good TJ McConnell prop, but like, come on, like what are we doing? It's not gonna be good.
Probably, I would say it's probably Boston -8 then. And if you want to go further, and it's like a 6-point move per 36 is not crazy to think about. So it's probably somewhere between 3 and 6. It's probably maybe it's like 5, 4.5, 5. 4.5 is probably pushing it, I think, for a player like Tyrese, even though I would have him higher. So it probably does probably pop up to like 9.5.
He really screams to me one of those guys that's pretty hard to put an exact like he's like in the Jokic zone. He's not in the Jokic zone overall, but I'm just saying he's in that zone of impact on his team's offense where it's really hard to capture that in like a sane number for the book. I think at least.
So Jim's on Pacers team total under and the Boston under. And Joe likes Boston -4.5. Nothing for me on this one. I do have Celtics in a parlay, and that's all I have on the money line for this one. Let's talk about the most fun game of the night, the Sickos game of the night. I'm so excited for this. We got Pelicans Kings with stakes. This is the dream for me. You can keep Lakers Celtics and Lakers Suns and all this. Give me this game. I'm so excited for this one. The Sacramento Kings are 4-point favorites versus the New Orleans Pelicans. Total is at 235. On the injury report, Larry Nance is out as he's got a rib fracture. Matt Ryan is out with elbow soreness. Chris Duarte is questionable for the Sacramento Kings with left knee soreness. And Alex Len is out with a high ankle sprain. That wraps up your injury report on it. No play for Joe on this one. He's only got the Valanciunas prop.
Yeah.
Jim, I'm with you. Why do you like Pels plus 4.5?
Yeah, for me, this is not a bet against the Kings as much as it's a bet on the Pelicans. I'm with this is the game I'm really excited for. I think this is going to be an incredibly fun game. These are two teams that are actually pretty similar in that they've been kind of around average if you look at just their season numbers as a whole, but they're getting healthier. And to me, they're two teams that are like very live to make a run here and really are super fun teams just to watch right now. I think why I lean the Pelicans in this match in particular is a couple of reasons. I think it's going to be an incredibly close game in which I want to grab the points. I think 4.5 is a little bit too long. I'd probably make it around 2.5 or 3. So if I'm seeing 4.5, I'm going to snag those couple extra points. For me, it's also a depth play, which is why I have another way of approaching this. If people are going to watch the game and they think they're going to be doing some live betting, I don't hate waiting until that first substitute mark and seeing what number you can get for the Pelicans there. Because I think the starters are about even, maybe a tiny edge to the Kings, maybe even. But I really love the bench unit for the Pelicans. Once again, it's looking really strong. Their 10 deep right now is so nice. So they start, McCollum, Herb Jones, BI, Zion, Valanciunas. That's their solid starting 5. But their bench unit, Trey Murphy, Jose Alvarado, Jordan Hawkins, who's been amazing in his rookie season, Dyson Daniel, Najee Marshall, who's having a pretty strong season out of nowhere kind of, and Cody Zeller. Their depth is really, really strong. So if you're going to be watching this game and you're planning to live bet it, I don't hate waiting until, maybe even second quarter. If it's sometimes it's tough to get, when it's like actually live action, it's tough to get that bet down. The books are moving it so quick. So yeah, I really like the depth of the Pelicans here. And yeah, this isn't a bet against the Kings as much as, my Pelicans have Troy Murphy back. Troy Murphy, I'm going to bring him up every 5 minutes on a podcast for the rest of the year now. This is my absolute guy, University of Virginia player. I'm a Virginia fan, wahoo wah. But I think even more than that, he is truly one of the more underrated players in the NBA. I've seen Matt, you call him the second best player on the Pelicans. I'm with you 100%. I think he's an incredible player. Got up 10 threes in 22 minutes in his first game back. That was another player I was potentially looking at for a prop. I want to see one more game to see where his minutes are at. And I think, in this in-season, the minutes in general could be a little funky. So I want to avoid that. Sacramento's pretty good at limiting threes as well. But Murphy's going to be a guy who I'm looking to play in many ways as he comes back here, because I think he's, one of the more underrated and talented and really impactful guys in the NBA.
They were plus 20 in Trey's 22 minutes in a game.
Guy's good.
I'm good.
He's really good. And he talked about the connection with him and Zion. All right. So look, I'm on Pels because my projection makes this Kings -1. So I'm on Pels money line and Pels plus 4.5. The caveat here to get a little fire hydrant and douse you down a little bit, Jim. Pels are bad on the road. They're real bad on the road. They're 3-6 straight up, 3-5-1 ATS. I want to dig into this for just 1 second. So the losses and fails to covers are on the Nuggets are on the road. No one beats Denver at home. The Wolves on the road, the best team in the Western Conference. The Rockets in early November when they were playing extremely well, they pushed on the spread that game. The Jazz twice, and then the Bulls game the other night with the Kobe White game, because that team is basically playing like, hey, the starters are out, we can get our stats up and get our money up, and they're playing more free because they're playing without basically the political tension that exists between DeRozan, Levine, and the front office. That doesn't excuse New Orleans. New Orleans should have won the Utah game. They should have won the Chicago game. They should have won both Utah games and the Chicago game. Should have won them. But what's interesting, I think, about that win-loss profile there is none of those teams are in their tier. It's either teams that are definitively above them, like Denver and Minnesota, or it's teams that are definitively below them, like Chicago and Utah. The Kings, I think, are in their tier. This is an even matchup. This is a even matchup with stakes on the line. I like the JV Valanciunas combo against Sabonis. I like their ability to spread the floor. I like the fact that they have GTA, Dyson Daniels, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, all to throw on De'Aaron Fox and Malik Monk. You can win the Sabonis minutes by a pretty hefty margin. If they run the Zion and 4 shooters lineup that I love it when they run it, they will absolutely cook in the minutes when Fox is not on the floor. They will dominate those minutes. Love this matchup. Love how it looks, Joe. So I fully expect the Kings to win by 15 points.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those spots, right? Like when you have a guy like De'Aaron Fox who's just been absolutely balling out, like especially in these in-season tournament games, and he's looked so good this year. It's tough to kind of count the Kings out of it. Especially, it looks like Keegan Murray should be available to play, so I think that obviously helps them stretch the floor. He's actually been very helpful on their defensive end too. I think just because it's less Herder and less Chris Duarte, so that's like a little bit of a factor there. But I mean, I'm really with you guys. I think that the spot would be to back the Pelicans here, especially with the line. It seems like I feel like the Kings are slightly overvalued, especially when you look at schedule adjusted net rating, and theirs are almost the same. The Pelicans are plus 0.8, Kings are plus 0.1, and they're only separated by by one spot basically in the standings for that, right? From 16th through to 18th. So I do think that this is a spot where, if I had to pick a side, I'm back in New Orleans. And it's interesting, and it's a little bit tough because I know we have talked about, I think it was in the last one, we're talking about like who should we be betting for, an MVP type of ticket. And I think that that's one of the more interesting things about this game in particular, because you do have such like polarizing players on each team between Zion and De'Aaron Fox. And maybe that's a way that I might, that maybe we can decide it's like, oh, like maybe I want to add to a position on one of those guys just in the event that they kind of get advanced through, rather than taking a money line spot here in what, maybe could be a coin flippy game.
So I have Zion Williamson in-season tournament MVP. I also have Tyrese Haliburton MVP, which just
That one's painful.
why the Celtics?
Yeah.
Why couldn't the Magic make it? What? How much better would this have been if we got in the Magic? Just, you don't need this, Celtics.
This is Adam Silver. I do not agree that it would be better with the Magic than the Celtics.
Yeah.
Or anyone that bet
Silver's
like Celtics minus 25 with us last time.
So let me be very clear on this. I am not one of the like the NBA rigs things. I think that stuff's stupid. From like how I've seen the league. But I will say that I know that in Secaucus, where the NBA headquarters is, there's got to be just like a huge, like basically a prayer circle hoping for Celtics Lakers in the finals.
Oh yeah.
Like it would just, like Knicks Lakers, great. Knicks Suns, okay, but like from an NBA perspective, even Bucks Lakers would be great. Giannis versus LeBron, fine. But the NBA's got it. This game, these two teams, the NBA's be like, you guys can have this game, and then you got to get up out of here. We got a guy get out of here. Can't have Sacramento or New Orleans in the finals.
New Orleans, Indiana, like.
Yeah. So I bet I've got KD position, so I'm okay on that. I think the problem here is I want to be like, we've made it all this far. We have these incredible tickets on these MVPs at these long prices. I don't feel like I have a good way to hedge out of them because of like who they're going to face in the next rounds. Yeah. Like I can't just be like, oh, I'll take Jayson Tatum tournament MVP or Celtics to win the thing. There's even at one book, there's like a Celtics and Kings to either one can win at a plus number. Like, okay, that's like an opportunity. I don't feel like there's any way I just have to like live with the fact that I took these long shots and like either they'll come out or they won't. There's no hedge opportunity until we get to at least semifinals. So I kind of just have to live with this. Kings are a very big open spot for me in terms of my positions. I think I have an Anthony Davis Finals MVP as well, which I don't think that will happen. But do you guys like? I guess here's my question: is all right? We like Pelicans and we like Celtics. What's the way to bet if those two teams are going to win? What's the best future angle to take off of that? Jim, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think this is a fun time to have the conversation of how do we think this award is going to be handed out? Do we think the voters are truly going to like pull up the in-season tournament box scores and somehow pick out the 6 games, which I have not been able to find statistically pulled out those 6 games. It's very challenging. I think what it's going to be is it's going to come down to the 2 games in Vegas, and honestly, probably the final game itself, I think is going to weigh immensely, which makes me go back to where I was at the beginning of this, which was I really like a good team, the second or third player on that team. You guys were laughing before the pod. You know what? Powering through. Trey Murphy, that is the finals MVP that I want right now. Scoff all you will. There are no odds. They will not humor me at all. But I believe he is the second best player on the team that I see a potential run from in the Pelicans. And here's the thing. If it is one game, this is a guy who got up, again, 10 threes in 22 minutes. This guy who could easily score 28 points. I made the comparison, not that these are not equal players. I'm going to say this very clearly. These are not equal players. In the WNBA, we saw in the Commissioner's Cup game, Jonquel Jones, who does admittedly have an MVP that Trey Murphy doesn't have yet, but she won at 34-1 because the books priced this as if they priced like an MVP for the season. To me, they are very different. This is something where there's far more variance possible. I think the team is more likely to be one of these top teams, a Celtics. I'm reading the Pelicans as maybe a little bit higher in the West than some other folks are. But I think it can be a second, third, even fourth best player on one of these really good teams that can win the award. So for me personally, that's the way I'm going to go back to it and look for a long shot to place alongside our Haliburtons, our Zions, our Celtics at 34-1. Hopefully you got if you got in time last week on the Buckets pod. But I really do think there is value to the kind of variance in player performance in 1-2 game stretches. I really don't think they're going to look at the 6 games as a whole. It's just too hard. It's too difficult to find. And it's going to be front of mind as we see the finals play out. So I don't know. Are you guys with me at all or no?
If Trey has that many points and that many touches to put him in line for it, you need to bet against the Pelicans because Brandon Ingram is going to spear him into the front row to make sure that he doesn't get the ball anymore. Like, here's the thing. I think that this is again, there are just so many ways where I'm like, oh, I get why you and Brandon are friends because like, this is the Joe Ingles that we've talked about where it's like, oh, but Trey Murphy had like 20 points and 3 threes, including or 5 threes, and including like the biggest one of the game in his defense, and like he was really the most important. It's like, yeah, but Brandon Ingram had 32 in the final.
Yeah,
like Brandon Ingram had 32 points on 28 shots in the final game.
They probably lost then, but like it's not the point, I guess. Like,
right. But the Celtics,
yeah.
The Celtics just did what they do, right? I think for me, when I kind of look at, by the way, I'm going to do a little editorial. This is like nerdy, but we need to do this because Jim mentioned that he doesn't know how to find these stats. And so Jim,
please do a little guide here.
If you go to your Slack, okay, all you got to do is go to the stats page on stats.nba.com. Under the player tab, go down to traditional stats and then go under season type and click on in-season tournament in the little drop-down menu. That's
okay.
It.
That's pretty easy.
This completes learning how to use the stats.nba.com site with Matt and Jim.
Listen, as a future NBA reference ambassador, I'm living there all the time. I want to be able to click those 6 games.
I'm looking forward to Brandon once again caping for BPM even harder. Jaylen Brown, I think, is like a good candidate maybe for that. A really funny one, if you want to look, you guys are on with us tomorrow, which is a shame. If you're going to go the second best player route, you know who you need to be betting.
Oh, this is going to be good.
Jim, you got to bet Julius Randle at 28-1.
Okay, Julius Randle is the exception. There is no universe in which Julius Randle is winning this award.
Trey Murphy, yes, but former All-NBA selection All-Star Julius Randle.
Too far.
I think it's funny that you say that though, because I don't think it's honestly as crazy because in part, like, if Randall plays the way that he's supposed to play, like, or the way that he's capable of playing, that's probably like a huge factor in why the Knicks can win. I don't want to get into it too much, but like I like the Knicks against the Bucks, so I'm not biased
Well,
at
Joe,
all.
actually, could you get into it a little bit? Because I actually think that I am with you on the Knicks. I think Knicks are a team that we both think are not priced right as the long dog
Yeah.
the longest odds left. And you did a really good job laying out on Twitter how it's better to do the mechanical parlay rather than bet a Knicks future right now.
Yeah, so basically the way that I looked at it is I think the best the best odds that I've seen were 20-1, and I don't even think they're there anymore for the Knicks to win the title. So like at best you're looking at 16-1, and I built it out mechanically, right? So against Milwaukee it's kind of come down a bit now, but they were plus 215 at the open. I think they're around like plus 200 or so now. We'll see, kind of how this game closes, but projecting that they would probably be similarly situated against a Boston Celtics team, right? They're probably going to be plus 200 again. It's going to be on a neutral floor. So I think that's relatively important, right? And then you figure in the title game, I think that Phoenix probably gets there out of the West. Looking at it that way, they're probably going to be plus 200 again. And conservatively, like if you just do that 3 times in a row, you're looking at like 27-1. And even if they play Indiana and maybe it's a plus 100, you're looking at it was about like plus 1700 or so. So like in terms of the combined odds. So I think for like a team like New York, who's my perception of like what their path would be is that it's probably one of the most difficult to get to the finals or to win the finals, that the odds are going to be a little bit longer. I also like the fact that with New York, or it's such a condensed time frame, right? Like New York could, in theory, let's say like they beat Milwaukee, but like Brunson gets hurt like at the end of the game, then it's like, well, I'm not going to bet them again. You know what I mean? So like, since it's only 3 games, you kind of have the ability to do that, like where it's like, all right, well, I can just roll it over, and like I'm not waiting a ton of time between games because the whole thing is happening between now and Saturday, and it's over. So I think that if you look at it and you can kind of project what the odds are, that's kind of a good way to do it when you're betting on these futures anyway. But I think especially for the Knicks, because they're at best, I think 16-1 in market now, it seemed better to build it out just based on the way I was projecting it to go forward.
There is in the market a Lakers to beat the Knicks in the finals at 28-1, which that gets a little interesting.
Yeah, I think that's a different number.
That's me who always wants to bet the exactas for the outcomes of these games. Do you guys have a lean on who you think wins Lakers Suns? Because I'm on Lakers.
We'll
talk about it tomorrow night.
I like Phoenix, honestly. I like what they have with Durant and Booker. They just look incredible this season. And like I know the Lakers, like the Lakers kind of took it to the Rockets the other night, like after being down and then kind of coming back. And I feel like LeBron like always gets up for this type of thing, but the raw efficiency between Durant and Booker, and then I think like Nurk is like a valuable-ish piece in here, just as like a body against Anthony Davis. So I'd rather have him than Ayton, I think, in this matchup. Like it's kind of a little toss-up-y, but I do lean Phoenix just in the matchup. I think that the offense has just been so good with Booker and Durant on the floor, especially Booker, that I don't know, and like I just don't know what version of Anthony Davis is ever going to show up. And I think that's the thing that's hard for me in the matchup, where like Booker and Durant, like I know they're going to show up, they're going to put out, and like same with LeBron, honestly. But even LeBron has taken a little bit of a step back offensively this year. Like he doesn't, like some games he'll explode, then other games he'll have 15 points. So it's not, I don't know, like what kind of step he's going to have, and like I feel like there's too many variables, especially defensively for even the Lakers on the perimeter with like Russell, Reeves, like etc. Like I don't know how they're going to stop Devin Booker at all.
I just don't trust. I don't trust the Suns defense.
Yeah.
Right. And the Lakers, when they face softer defenses, that's when they start to kick it up a little bit. Also, like LeBron will get up for beating Kevin Durant. I will be remiss if I do not mention this, because Brandon Anderson has been texting me about it like every 3 seconds. So the Lakers are at home for the Suns. if they win in that, they play 2 games in Las Vegas. Those are going to be home games.
Yeah.
Because everyone from LA will drive to Vegas for those. Suns is like second on the that's pretty good for being able to get a home crowd there. But the Lakers is a whole other deal. And there's a ton of Lakers fans that live in Vegas and will go to it.
Yeah.
So they are the only team that I do not have projected for actual like neutral court for being actually a home game for the Lakers, which is a big reason why I like them. That's the core of the Suns thing too, is if this was on neutral court, I would probably not like the Lakers. I would like the Suns, but it's not. It's in LA. So I'll take them there. Jim, do you have thoughts on Lakers Suns?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a head and the heart for me. I think by the numbers, I definitely go towards the Suns. But I do think that there is something to the LeBron Kevin Durant thing. I think LeBron will be really locked in for these games in a way that maybe we haven't seen the entire season. He's played amazing, but I think there will be an extra level that he has for these games. And that's kind of the heart, kind of not going against the numbers. But I think why I land back to the Suns in the end is at this second, I do think Devin Booker is the number one player of those kind of big four that I would want on my team in that game. I'm the high guy on Booker. I just think he showed me in the postseason last year that he really does have another level offensively and another level defensively. And so if they're treating this like a playoff game, I really think Booker is going to be the best player on the court. And so I'll go back to the Suns there. And that's why I like them on the West as a whole for the in-season right now.
I think I'm going to bet Knicks to win the tournament.
Let's go.
You're saying I should just I should do the mechanical.
I think you should just roll it over.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the odds are
just
better.
roll it over.
Okay, I'll just roll it over and we'll go that way. But I think I'm going to do that because I do think I like them versus the Bucks.
Yeah.
And I have a position. We have that great Celtics ticket that we got thanks to Jim that Joe and I then nuked for him immediately on the podcast. Sorry about that.
That's on me. I disappeared right after. I should have bet it instantly.
Well, I feel worse for the listeners. Because it was really funny because Jim's like, are we going to bet that? And then like Jim's like, I just looked at the notifications as Joe and I both hit that 34-1. Just destroyed it and immediately like it started going down. But yeah, like, look, I like the Knicks in the versus the Bucks. I like the Knicks versus the Celtics. And so like, I think they have a really good shot to get to that final round. We'll see. I think I am going to play it though, just because Milwaukee, it's tough. I don't know whether to trust my numbers or not. Like last 2 weeks, the Bucks starters have been amazing, and it's just the bench. The problem is, like, we'll talk about this more on tomorrow's show. The Knicks have an awesome bench. They're doing that again.
So
They have an
good,
awesome
yeah.
bench. And so it's going to be like Bucks first quarter, Knicks first half, Bucks third quarter, Knicks full game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it probably gives a lot of opportunities to live bet. That's a great call.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
All right. To recap, Jim's on team total under on the Pacers, under on Boston, Indiana, and New Orleans plus 4.5. Joe likes Boston minus 4.5. Drew Holiday over on rebounds. Valanciunas double. I'm on Pelicans plus 4. We'll be back tomorrow as we give you the full in-depth cap on the 2 games on Tuesday before we get into the Wednesday slate. Thanks for joining us. Make sure to check out actionnetwork.com and the Action Network app, as well as youtube.com/the Action Network. You can follow Jim Turvey on Twitter and in the Action Network app at TurveyBets, and Joe Delara at Joe Delara. We'll see you guys again next time. Thanks for joining us. Till next time, let's get buckets.